What's up, guys? If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, please smash that like button on the video and enjoy the show.
And I think I learned how to live a better life because of that day.
Wow. You're able to talk about it too, so descriptively, which I think in a lot of ways is also a gift, because there's a lot of people who were there that day that, and I fully understand this, that, you know, you can't go there. They can't talk about it because it was just so traumatic, and the things they saw they can't unsee. But you know, I think there's a famous documentary called 102 Minutes that changed America or something like that, which takes you from the time that the first tower was hit, and I want to say it was like 8:46 or something like that, to when the second tower fell 102 minutes later. And I'm always captured by how much happened in 102 minutes. And then you think about it, that's like a short movie. It's not even, like, runtime wise, it's not even long. But when you're in it, did it feel like time was moving incredibly? It felt slow.
Actually, time was really super slow when the first tower was coming down. When it was coming down, and I don't want to say I was hiding because I was out there. It was the American Express building, that was right next to the highway, and I just bolted there and sat by that wall, and I was like, maybe this wall will shield me somewhat from the debris when it comes down. And I will tell you, like, when you watch those movies and they show the person running in slow-mo and everything in slow-mo, I don't know how the body does it. It did it for me. Everything slowed down. I mean, those minutes, if it was even minutes, they became so slow to the point where I remember thinking, okay, I need water in case I get buried alive. And there was water piled up not too far from us, that we were using to actually wipe people's faces because they were burning. They couldn't see from the stuff. And I run over, I grab water. Then I'm like, all right, I'm going to get, the steel's going to kill me, but if it's glass, because the towers were all glass, I'm like, glass can kill you. And there were these picnic tables that people would sit at. They were steel ones. But those were the heavy ones that they're designed so that you can't move them. My adrenaline kicked in, and I literally grabbed one of the steel tables, pull it over, and I'm like, I got water, I got a steel table, I'm going to go under this. And I was like, and I'm actually checking things off, like a punch list. What do I need for what? And I was actually, plan A, I die. Okay, if plan A happens and I die, I'm done. So it's easy. I don't have to worry about anything. But I was more worried about if I get buried alive. And then if I get buried alive, and then I'm injured. And then how are they going to find me? Like, to me, that was harder to swallow. I was like, if I go, and I'm okay to go. Let something big and fast hit me, and then I wake up in Big Mac heaven or wherever I'm going to wake up, wherever my paradise is. I was okay with that. It was just more of the being buried or being, injured or maimed, or, that was the part where I was like, man, that's going to be a hard one to swallow. I remember thinking, how are they ever going to find me? No one's going to find me. But you get through it. I guess that's the difference between endurance and resilience. I always think about it. You can go through something. Going through something is endurance. I went through this. But resilience is something else. Resilience is the ability to go back to the pre-stressor of who you were, the pre-stressor part of you. So to be able to go through an event, it's not enough to just go through something. That doesn't mean anything. You can go through something, but it doesn't mean that you're resilient. Resilient is your ability to go through something, and then despite what has happened to you, you're able to bring your back to a pre-stressor phase, meaning you're able to function pre that stress. It doesn't mean you forget about it. It doesn't mean you heal from it. Like, quite frankly, when I hear people say heal, how do you heal from a 9/11? There's no amount of therapy you can go to make any of that make sense, at least for me. And I remember the Secret Service, actually, I didn't write about this in my book, right after it happened, they were trying to gather up those of us that they thought would be the most messed up from what happened. And my supervisors were like, Evie's going to be all jacked up, because they knew of where I was. And they made me and maybe another 15 agents, we did a big group circle at JFK Airport in one of the hangars. They brought therapists and psychologists to sit with us 2 days after it happened.
In a big dark hangar.
It's like
right out of a movie scene. It sounds like a mob hit.
It was, I will never forget. I did not want to go, but I was forced to go. So we sit there, And, and then they go around the room, and I remember it was everybody tell your story, and each person was going around telling their story about where they were. And I remember thinking, how is this helping me? At least for me. And I'm listening to everybody. And at that point, by the time they came to me, they're like, Evy, what was your story? I was like, I went to work, first plane hit, second plane hit, then the first tower collapsed, and the second. I tried to do my best. I'm done. I did not want to talk about it. I'm like, what is there to go through? And then I went to the next. Then after me, everybody else started doing the same thing. Because I think they were like, all right, I'll play. And then after me, they were kind of like, I don't want to do this either. Like, I just want to go back and work. That was my therapy. So the U.S. Secret Service set up a command post. We were on Greenwich over there right by the towers, and we just went to work, 12-hour shifts. I got lucky. I got day shift. And
you're going through all the rubble.
We're going through the rubble. So what people don't know is World Trade Center 7 had CIA was in there, FEMA was in there. Intelligence agencies were in there. We were secretly in there, but we were in there. So with that, our stuff was in there, our weapons. Secret Service, we had vaults of weapons in there. So in addition to looking for people, it was also looking for our stuff. And so we would go through the stuff, and then when stuff would be found, we would secure it. I'd also find, parts of people. I remember once I got a radio call, hey, you need to go. And literally it was 2 blocks over. They think they found, a remnant of a person. And we go up into this building. It was a working building that hadn't been damaged. We go all the way up to the top, and it was like a rooftop ledge. And they're like, you see that? And I was like, is that a squirrel? And I was looking. It was like something fuzzy. And then my partner, my buddy Matt's like, no, man, that's somebody's hair, somebody's scalp. So we get our stuff and we pull it, and it was somebody's scalp or hair. I'm thinking probably from the planes because it just propelled out, and and that's what we did. We just collected stuff and we would take it over to the area where they were doing DNA testing for people. But that was my therapy.
How many months were you doing that?
Secret Service only let me do it, I think, 3 weeks. Then they pulled me out. They're like, you can't do this anymore. They thought it would make me worse. I was like, I don't want to say I feel good, but I'm like, this is my therapy. So they actually brought in...
Some strange therapy.
Well, I guess I found meaning. So this bad thing happened, and you know what? I was lucky to be alive. So many other people didn't make it. So if I sat there and I got lost in the sadness of it. But keep in mind, like, I was around other people who were very resilient too. There were some agents who were like, nope, I'm not going back. No way, no way. And they were like, I'm not going back. Actually, I think it was a couple of days later, President Bush came and he visited the rubble, that famous photo.
Yeah, when he's on there with the bullhorn.
And so we had to post stand. It's called post standing to secure the area for Bush. But we had no equipment because all our stuff got destroyed because it was the New York field office. And so this is like the amazing part of the U.S. Secret Service. Washington field office sends up like this caravan of guns and radios and all this stuff. And it's like, all right.
They probably love that.
Like 2 days later, I think it was right after our therapy session, go figure. They're like, come get your radio and guns and this and that. Because they were talking about bringing in agents from outside offices to come stand post. They're like, hey, you guys have kind of been through stuff. You don't have gear and weapons. Let the outsiders come in. And everybody in New York was like, nope, we're doing it. We're securing our president. And so I got like a makeshift radio, makeshift wires. I had my gun. I was like, I just need a gun. I just like bullets and gun, and I'm all right. And we kind of like with minimum gear, we kind of all like stood post. I remember POTUS walking by back then it was Giuliani, and he was going around saying hi to everybody because he had known, obviously because Secret Service, and to me, everybody goes through their stuff, but I will tell you unequivocally, I'm okay because of that, because I was able to functionally do something and not sit in a hole or in my home and sit and wallow. Like, that is not good. If you can find meaning, and I think it was Viktor Frankl who wrote about it, if you can find meaning in your darkest moments, like that's where that's resilience. I'm going back to who I was pre-stressor Evy, but I'm still taking this stuff with me, but this stuff it impacts you, but it does not take you on a different trajectory in your life.
Do you think there's a danger of compartmentalizing that, though?
I didn't compartmentalize it. I made it part of me. And if anything, I remember when the first tower was coming down. I was young. I was like 25. And I remember when it was coming down, I'll tell you this. I didn't think about my brand new car that I just bought, that I was finally able to afford a brand new car. I did not think about the money I was making now as a U.S. Secret Service agent. We don't make a lot of money, but for me, I was like, oh my God, it's a real paycheck here. The fact that I was out of training, like all the things that I valued up until that moment, none of that mattered. I remember the tower was coming down. I'm like, all right, I'm going to die. That's a for sure thing. I thought about my mother. I thought about my father. I thought about my brother. I thought about who I was as a human being. And then I remember being sad. I'm like, man, I'm going to die alone. It's like, there's nobody here. I ended up being alone in that moment. There's nobody's hand to hold, no one to say goodbye. And I remember, and I'm Greek Orthodox, but in that moment I prayed and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to die alone. I'm going to ask God to be here with me. And I organically, authentically, I was like, I prayed. I was like, God, just be here with me when I die. So wherever I end up going, you're there, or guide me. And I remember just thinking, I never got to get married. I was like, I never got to have kids. I'm like, man, I didn't do these things. If you let me live, I will do these things. That's what I thought about. That's what it was like and I've had another near-death experience, but that was like my near-death experience. And then after that, I was like, I'm going to live. Wherever I go, I'm going to live.
Is there like a little bit of a Zen feeling after that? Because you went through that, you had that moment where you had to like kneel before God and think about what comes next, and you did it in a way where you didn't necessarily beat yourself up too much, but you thought about the things that maybe, okay, if I were given another chance, I want to make sure I do this or that, and now you feel like you almost have a second lease on life? I
did. I saw life very differently. I still do. I always go back. So when things happen and I'm like, this doesn't matter. There's moments where my husband, like, he'll see me get warped up in something. He's like, dude, you like had towers come down on your head. Like, how is this bothering you right now? He's like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, just let me live for a moment. Let me just be petty. And I always go back to that and I'm grounded. I think it's how you choose. But again, I want to be fair. I was around other agents who were like, if you're around resilient, you are resilient. Yeah. If I was around other people who are like, I can't handle this, then I don't want to say that it's just me as an individual. We are influenced by the people around us. I don't care how strong you think your identity is, you are impacted by everybody around you, both positively and negatively.
Absolutely. Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.